Commiserating has become sort of a sport with many senior leaders. Some of them are getting really good at it. Yes, your CEO might be a handful, the business might be a mess, all of those might be true. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that you as a senior leader should accept just lamenting, complaining, whining about things as your way of handling it. When we choose to have that stance, that view on things, we, first of all, don't realize our own autonomy and agency as leaders. And second of all, we make ourselves just get accustomed to learned hopelessness just by saying that things are bad, that things suck, however you want to call it. Just complaining about things ends up creating an organization where everyone just feels like they're drifting. No one tries to take the lead. No one tries to fix things, change things up. And the second that you stop thinking about your agency, your autonomy, what you can do and change, you're getting lost as a leader because you have a lot of options here. And deciding to stick is a choice you're making. So make sure that whatever choice you're making is a choice that makes sense as well. In this video, we'll talk about your choice as a leader, how you ought to treat things, the two tests that I use with my clients to see if they're in a position where they need to make a bigger change, and a few tactics that I use with my clients to help them regain their autonomy. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive, coach, and consultant, and I help people just like you create teams worth leading, because life's too short to lead a mediocre team. And a mediocre team is usually what you find in a mediocre company with a bunch of leaders who just complain and huff around, but aren't actually doing things. Let's see how you can do things better. First of all, we'll start by again, underline the fact that staying in your position is a choice. And if you're making that choice, you have to own it. Don't just stay there and keep huffing, but try to ensure that the organization around you is improving, becomes the organization you want to be in. The few tests that I use with my clients, one is the magic wand test. Imagine that I was holding a magic wand, and if you would tell me I could just wave it right now, and boom, tomorrow you'd be not in the company, you would be quitting, whatever maybe they would decide. No, magically you will no longer be required to your company. There would be no bad consequences for you when it comes to getting detached from the company. No one will hate you, no one will give you a bad reference, etc. The company would find a solution and you could just go with no one hating you, being angry, making you feel guilty, whatever. If that were possible, would you ask me to wave the wand? When people say yeah, that immediately tells them that they ought to quit or start moving towards quitting. Because if you're staying there just because you're feeling guilty about things, and you're not a co-founder, but even sometimes when you are a co-founder, you ought to be moving ahead. You cannot stay in a position where you actually don't view it as the right place for you. When you're staying because you've made yourself into a martyr. If that's the case, you better move. You're making the wrong decision by staying too long. If you decide to stay, then you need to look into the tactics that we're talking about in a second in order to ensure that you're not just sitting there and wallowing in your sorrow, but trying to turn things around. The second test that I use is the friends test. It's not exactly the same, and it doesn't overlap 100% with the previous one, which is why I use the two. And that is, I often ask people, would they feel comfortable bringing their friends to work with them in the company? Now, sometimes people tell me no because they're aware of the business risk in a startup. They know because they're inside that maybe things would not succeed and they would be bringing in their friends only to lose their jobs within 6 months or something because the pipeline isn't great or something. That's one thing. And if you're not the head of sales, you don't necessarily need to have the conviction that things will go smoothly in the next 6 months. That's fine or okay. But if you're saying, no, I would not bring my friends because I know that the environment is a bit poisonous, because the culture is so-so, because I know we have a lot of people here who are below standard, whatever you're telling yourself, If the reason isn't because you're afraid of them losing their jobs, or because of them coming in and seeing what you have around you, if that's the case, you are in a very bad position, because it means that you don't actually believe in the company, in the organization. You have to either decide to change things from inside, or you have to decide to leave, because a senior executive, a senior leader in a company that doesn't believe in it, that doesn't believe enough in its culture to bring in their friends, is not something healthy for the company. So either turn it around or get out. And the 3 tactics that I recommend starting with, if you've decided, and again, this is your choice, if you're making the choice to stay put, not because of momentum, but because you believe that this is the right place, start turning things around. The tactics are very simple. The first one is to do and focus on the things that are within your control. You know the serenity prayer? Find those things that you can change and change the heck out of them, right? Don't just sit there whining, but find those things that you know are within your purview. And a lot of the times, there are many more things than you might expect initially that you can change as a leader, especially in a startup. You have so much freedom usually, way more than you expect. Use it. Wield this power, wield this autonomy to change things up. Find those things that you can make better and make them goddamn better. Because only by doing so will you start gaining that momentum. Second, about things that are not under you, that you cannot change, that you do not have full autonomy on, don't just say, okay, the heck with it. Where possible, see whether you can become an ally for whoever is relevant. Can you find a person who needs help and recommend a good coach for them, a consultant, an expert, give them some feedback that maybe they're not getting. Do whatever you can to be a good colleague and help people improve, even when it's not your job. Because sometimes all we need is someone by our side that believes in us, that tells us the truth, that's willing to help us get better. And that's enough to help people snap out of it at times. I've seen it happen countless times in my work. That's why I believe in what I do. That's why I love what I'm doing, because sometimes you can see people, companies, organizations make huge leaps within a few weeks, a couple of months, just because all of a sudden they're getting some attention, they're getting some focus, and they see that someone believes in their ability to get better. That's sometimes all we need. You can be that for many in your company. Be it, especially when you notice that they are in those areas where they could have an amazing positive impact if things were to change. And one last tactic, there are more, but these are the 3 that I recommend starting with and focusing on, is saying, okay, things cannot be perfect, because things cannot be perfect. You cannot fix everything. Even with the previous 2, there would be things that are not within your purview, that even with feedback you cannot make a lot better. That's fine. But sometimes what can really turn things around is you saying, I'm going to get everyone around here looking at what we're doing and saying to themselves, oh my God, if they can rock so hard, why can't we as well? And that's the concept of creating a core of excellence, something that makes people's heads turn. And you can do it in a small startup, you can do it in a big company. I first started talking about this when I was at IBM, and I saw how much it has helped my entire organization around me when we did things like that. You can do it. The concept is simple. Yes, accept what you cannot change and focus on what you can change, turning your organization, even within the limits, into the best version of itself within those limits. Something that makes people say, oh my God, can we do the same? Can we hop on board? You want people from, your peers to look at you and say, hey, can you tell me what you're doing? I see the magic. I see the buzz. I can sense that something is going well, and I want some of what you're having. That's what you want to create, and you can do it. How? If you stop feeling sorry for yourself, if you stop looking at things, pointing fingers, trying to say how it's their fault or that person's fault, and instead saying, here's what I can do, and I'm gonna make it the best version of it possible. And when you do that, a lot of the times you actually unlock even more successes all around you, because all of a sudden people look at you and they want to work with you. They want to copy some of what you're doing. They want to get some help, and you're starting to create this flywheel of excellence. Will it always work? Of course not. I mean, sometimes I work with great companies that end up going bust. So of course not. But if you're choosing to stay, do you really have any other options here rather than making sure that what you're doing is the best version of the organization that's possible? Because then you're creating the only chance sometimes, or the best chance other times, to create an organization that can succeed, to help the company get to where it ought to be getting. And that's what real leadership is all about. And if you need help with that, if you need someone by your side, my email's in the video description. I'll be happy to hop on a free diagnostic call. So your takeaways: run the 2 tests by yourself, the magic wand and the friends test. And if you still choose to stick where you're at, take these tactics, choose whatever you're starting with, and start doing something so you end up leading an organization you're proud of. There's no other choice. We're so privileged, we're so lucky to be in an industry where if you're any good at what you're doing as a leader, you can find a different role. You don't have to stay where you don't believe, where you don't fit. So if you're choosing to stay, you better make the most out of it. That's it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments or in my email in the video description. And if you like this, please like and subscribe. It really helps. And I'll see you here in the next video. Ciao.